Cold doesn't just make you uncomfortable. In war, cold can end you quietly. No gunfire, no warning. Just the slow drain of body heat until fingers stop working and sleep feels a little too good. Out in the brutal winters of World War II, especially on exposed fronts, staying warm wasn't a luxury. It was survival. And sometimes survival came down to something as small and ordinary as a razor blade. Yeah, a shaving razor. The kind meant for a morning routine became a lifeline in frozen forests, muddy foxholes, and wind-cut open fields. Let's get into how that tiny strip of steel helped keep soldiers alive. Small item, big impact. Soldiers in World War II carried limited gear. Space and weight mattered. Every item had to earn its place. Fire starters like matches could get wet. Lighters could, run out of fuel. But a thin carbon steel razor blade was light, flat, and easy to tuck into a kit. It didn't exactly look like survival gear, but it had one key property that really mattered in the cold. It could throw sparks. Many razor blades at the time were made from high-carbon steel. That type of steel, when struck against hard stone or flint, can shave off tiny hot metal particles. Those particles oxidize instantly in air and become sparks. Real sparks, hot enough to catch fine tinder. This wasn't just theory, it was field improvisation. When issued gear failed or ran out, soldiers adapted. A razor blade and a piece of hard rock could, honestly, become a fire starter. Why? Fire meant life. In freezing conditions, fire does more than just warm your hands. It dries socks. It heats rations. It melts snow for drinking water. It boosts morale when, everything else feels lost. Hypothermia was a constant threat in many World War II campaigns, and even a small, well-hidden fire could mean the difference between shivering through the night and actually making it to morning. Soldiers couldn't always build big fires. Smoke and light could give away positions. So they learned to make small, controlled flames. That meant needing reliable ignition. A razor blade could help create the first ember without relying on fragile matches. How the razor blade trick worked was, simple in concept, but took practice. A soldier would gather the driest, finest tinder possible. Think shredded cloth fibres, scraped wood shavings, dry grass, or the fuzzy inner bark from certain trees. The goal was something that would catch a spark instantly. Next came the striker motion. Holding a sharp edge of the razor blade firmly, the soldier would strike it against a hard stone at a shallow angle. The idea wasn't to chop. It was to scrape fast and hard enough to shear off microscopic bits of steel. Those bits heated from friction and reacted with oxygen, turning into sparks that flew forward. When done right, those sparks landed in the tinder bundle. One glow, a tiny red point. That was the moment. The soldier would gently blow, feeding oxygen, letting that glow spread. Then came the flame. Small at first, then strong enough to light slightly thicker kindling. No fancy gear, no modern fire starters. Just steel, stone, and skill. Why a razor blade worked so well? You might wonder why not just use a knife. Some did. But razor blades had advantages. They were thin, which made it easier to shave off hot particles. They were very hard, which helped produce sparks. And they were, common. Shaving was part of military discipline, so blades were often available even when other tools weren't. They were also expendable. If one dulled or broke, it wasn't a disaster. Soldiers could still use it for sparks, even if it was, useless for shaving. Improvisation was everything. World War II survival often came down to improvisation. Official gear was helpful, but reality on the ground was, honestly, messy. Supplies got lost. Weather ruined equipment. Units were cut off. In those moments, training met creativity. A razor blade might also be used with other materials to boost spark production. Some soldiers learned to scrape magnesium from damaged equipment parts or combine sparks with charred cloth to make catching an ember, just a bit easier. The blade wasn't magic by itself. It was part of a mindset. Use what you have. Waste nothing. Adapt fast. That mindset saved lives just as much as weapons did. The skill mattered more than the tool. Here's the key thing. The razor blade wasn't a guarantee. If your tinder was damp, you were in trouble. If your hands were numb and shaking, striking sparks got harder. That's why soldiers who had experience with fieldcraft, camping, or rural life often had an edge. They understood materials. They knew how to find dry fibers even in wet environments. They knew how to shield a tiny ember from wind. The blade gave them a chance. Skill turned that chance into fire. Modern survival experts still teach similar principles today. Spark making with steel and stone is one of the oldest fire methods in human history. World War II soldiers were, in a way, reaching back to ancient techniques when modern tools failed. A quiet hero of cold nights. No medals were given to razor blades. No headlines talked about them. But in frozen forests and shattered villages, that small strip of steel helped start fires that dried boots, warmed fingers, and kept exhausted men from slipping into deadly cold sleep. War stories often focus on tanks, planes, and grand strategy. But survival is built on small details. A dry pair of socks, a hot drink, a flame the size of a fist. The razor blade fire trick is one of those quiet details that mattered more than most people realize. It's a reminder that in World War II, victory and survival didn't just depend on firepower. They depended on knowledge, adaptability, and the ability to turn everyday objects into life-saving tools. And that's the kind of history we love digging into here. The human side, the clever side, the side that shows how ordinary items did extraordinary things under pressure. If you want more hidden survival stories and battlefield ingenuity from World War II, make sure you subscribe to 0 Hour World War II and share this with someone who loves real, gritty history. There's always another forgotten trick waiting to be uncovered.